The sky was broken, stars were falling, and the world was full of fire. Riva stood on a cold metal floor, shaking. Her small hands were covered in dust, and her eyes were full of tears. She was just a child, an alien child. Her mother was lying next to her, not moving, not breathing. The ship had crashed, and everything was silent now. Riva? Her mother had said before closing her eyes, "Find the humans, they will help you." Riva did not understand why humans were strange. Her people called them dangerous, but her mother trusted them, so Riva had to try. Now she was alone. The sky above her showed the stars, broken pieces of ships, and fire floating in the air. The moon they had landed on was cold and dead. No life, no help, only ruins. She walked for hours. Her legs tired, her feet in pain. She found some broken machines. A dead robot, a piece of bread in a box. She ate slowly, saving every bite. She was scared, but she remembered her mother's voice, "Find the humans." She did not know how long she had walked when she saw a strange shape in the distance, a shadow, tall and strong. Walking slowly, she wanted to run, but her legs were too weak. She fell to her knees and cried. The shadow came closer. It was not a monster, not a robot, not another alien. It was a human. He wore armor. His face was tired, and he held a weapon in his hands. He looked around, careful, watching the sky. Then he saw her. Riva looked up with wide eyes. The human pointed his weapon, then paused. She could not speak for a moment. Then she whispered, "Can I please stay with you?" The human blinked. His name was Mason, a soldier from Earth. He had seen many things, but never a child like this one, small, thin, with glowing eyes and soft skin that shimmered blue. "You're not human," he said slowly. Riva nodded. "My mother died today," she whispered. She said, "Find the humans." Mason lowered his weapon. He looked at her for a long time. Then he spoke. "You can stay." Riva fell into his arms, too tired to stand. She felt safe, just for a moment. But the moment did not last. A loud sound echoed behind them. A low growl, followed by heavy steps. Something was coming, something big. Mason turned around quickly. "Gun ready? Stay behind me," he told her. From the shadows, a strange beast stepped out. It had sharp teeth, long claws, and hungry red eyes. It was not alone, more were behind it. Mason fired his weapon. The light flashed, one beast fell, then another. But there were too many. He grabbed Riva and ran. They moved through wreckage. Broken steel and fire. The beasts chased them, growling louder. Riva held onto Mason tightly. She was afraid, but she trusted him now. They reached a cave hidden behind a fallen ship. Mason pulled her inside and dropped a grenade behind them. Boom, the entrance collapsed, blocking the beast's darkness. Silence, only the sound of their breath remained. Mason lit a small light. They were safe, for now. He looked at Riva. "You all right?" She nodded, tears on her face. "I'm okay now." "Good," Mason said. "You're lucky I found you." Riva looked down at her necklace. It was a glowing crystal her mother gave her. She touched it gently. "My mother said, humans are kind, Mason." Looked surprised? Kind. "Most people don't think that, but you saved me." She said, "You are kind." Mason smiled for the first time in a long while. "Maybe I am," in the dark cave. They rested, a human soldier and an alien child, both lost in the war, but maybe found in each other. Outside, the sky was no longer falling, but something darker was coming. Neither of them knew. But the real story was only just beginning. The cave was cold. Riva sat near the soft blue light of her crystal, watching it pulse. Slowly, she could still hear the sounds of the beasts outside, claws scratching against the rocks. low growls echoing in the air. But inside the cave, there was only silence. Mason checked his weapon. He was a soldier, trained for war. But this was different. He had never protected a child before, especially not an alien one. "You need rest," he said softly. Riva nodded, but didn't close her eyes. She was afraid. Not just of the monsters outside, but of everything. She missed her mother, the way she sang, the way she held her hand. Now there was only darkness. Mason sat beside her. He pulled a small packet of dried food from his bag and handed it to her. She took it, sniffed it, and ate slowly. "You have a name." Mason asked Riva. She said, "That's nice." He replied, "I'm Mason." They sat together in silence, two strangers from different worlds, but something connected them, something deeper than words. After a while, Riva spoke. "My people were hiding," she said. "The war came to our system. We tried to stay out." Mason looked at her, "But you still got pulled in." She nodded. "The attackers came without warning. They destroyed our cities. My mother tried to escape with me." Her voice shook. "But they followed us, even here." Mason leaned back against the wall. "I've seen things like that," he said. "Earth's been through it too." He looked into the shadows of the cave. The war wasn't supposed to reach this far, but it always does. Suddenly, the crystal around Riva's neck glowed brighter. Mason noticed it. "That thing," he said. "What is it?" Riva touched it gently. "My mother gave it to me before she died. It's from the old times, from before the stars broke. It feels alive," Mason whispered. Riva nodded. "She said it would protect me." Just then, the ground trembled. A low rumble rolled through the cave. Mason stood up. "Gun ready, stay close," he said. From deeper in the cave, a strange humming sound began. The walls shimmered, and symbols started glowing. The crystal in Riva's hand responded, pulsing faster. "What's happening?" Mason asked. "I don't know," Riva whispered, "but I think we're not alone." A panel in the stone wall slid open, revealing a hidden path. Mason hesitated. "Should we go in?" Riva stepped forward. "My mother said humans would guide me." "Maybe this is the way." They walked down the narrow path, the walls glowing as they moved. It felt ancient, forgotten. Not built by humans, not by her people either. At the end of the tunnel was a chamber filled with floating lights. In the center, a tall metal figure stood, silent and still. Riva stepped closer, the crystal around her neck floating toward the figure. The figure's eyes lit up. A soft voice filled the room. "Life form detected. Human and non-human alliance confirmed." Mason raised his weapon. "What is this?" "A message," the voice replied, "from those who came before." The lights moved around them like stars, showing pictures in the air. Planets burning, fleets fighting, children running, and then peace. Two figures, one human, one alien, standing together. "The future is not war." The voice said, "It is unity. It is hope." Riva looked up. "My mother knew about this," she said. "She wanted peace, not war." Mason was silent. He looked at Riva, this small child carrying something far bigger than either of them. A chance to stop the endless fighting, a message that someone wanted buried. Suddenly, a red light flashed. The voice said, "Warning. Enemy signal detected. Time is short." Mason grabbed Riva's hand. "We have to move." They rushed back through the tunnel as the cave shook again. When they reached the entrance, it was already breaking apart. Mason fired at the wall, blasting. A way out, they ran into the darkness, chased by fire and falling rocks behind them. The secret was buried once again. Outside, the sky was darker. Mason looked up and saw ships in the distance, not human, not friendly. He looked at Riva. "Someone doesn't want you alive." Riva held the crystal tightly. "And someone wants me to survive." Mason smiled grimly. "Then we keep moving. He placed his hand on her shoulder. We find out who sent that message and why. Riva nodded in her small heart. Something had changed. She was not just a lost child anymore. She was part of something bigger. As the sky roared above them and shadows spread across the land, one human and one alien walked into the unknown. Together, the wind was strong. Dust moved like ghosts across the broken ground. Mason and Riva walked quietly, tired but focused. Behind them, the cave had fallen, hiding the ancient message again, but the words were now inside their hearts. Peace, unity, hope. They walked. For hours, the land was silent. No birds, no machines, only ruins. Riva held Mason's hand. It was rough and warm. She felt safe. She didn't say much, but she watched everything. Mason looked at her sometimes. He was quiet too, but his thoughts were loud. He remembered his daughter. She was small like Riva, full of life, full of questions. But the war had taken her. A blast, a message. A folded flag he never cried in front of anyone, but now, walking beside this little alien girl, he felt something opening again. Are you okay? Riva asked, looking up at him. He nodded. Just thinking about your family. She asked softly. Mason stopped, surprised. How did you know? I can feel it, she said. My people. We sometimes feel pain in others. Not always. Just sometimes, Mason. Looked at her. You're a lot more than just a child. Riva smiled a little. And you're more than just a soldier. They reached a small bunker hidden under metal panels. Mason typed a code and opened the door. Inside, the lights flickered, but it was safe for now. Welcome to my old hideout, he said. It's not much, but there's food, water, and a working comm system. Riva sat down on a soft bench. This is better than the cave, she said. Mason gave her a warm blanket and a protein bar. She chewed slowly, her glowing eyes watching the room. On the wall was a photo, Mason and a little human girl with brown hair. Riva pointed. That's her, right? Mason nodded. Her name was Lily, he said. She loved to draw. Used to fill this place with color. Riva stood and touched the photo gently. I'm sorry, she whispered. Mason looked away. War takes everything, he said. People say we fight for peace, but we lose it along the way. He sat down beside her. You remind me of her. You know, Riva blinked, because I talk too much. Mason laughed for the first time in years. No, he said. Because you care too much. Suddenly, the screen on the wall beeped. A red light flashed incoming message. Mason opened it. A voice spoke. Commander Mason, we have your location. Return. To base immediately. Riva stepped back. Are they coming for me? Mason didn't answer. The message continued. Report says you are hiding a non-human entity. Hand her over or face arrest. He turned off the screen. Silence filled the room. What will you do? Riva asked. Mason looked at her. I promised you could stay, he said. I don't break promises, but they're your people, she said. They might hurt you. Mason stood up. You're my people now too. He opened a metal box from the wall. Inside were maps, weapons, and an old hollow diary. He placed it on the table. This diary belonged to my daughter, he said. She used to talk to it every night, even after I came back from missions. Riva picked it up. It was small, dusty, and full of drawings. Stars, flowers, spaceships, and on the last page, a drawing of a human holding hands. With a small alien girl, Riva looked at Mason, her eyes wide. She drew me. Mason shook his head slowly. No, she never met you. But she always believed we could live together. Riva smiled, holding the diary to her chest. She was right. Suddenly, an alarm rang. Motion detected. Mason ran to the screen. 3 ships. Landing nearby human ships. Too fast, he muttered. They're not here to talk. Riva stood beside him. You can run, Mason. Leave me here. No, he said. I already lost one daughter. I won't lose another. She looked at him. Do you mean that? Yes, he said. You're my responsibility now, and maybe something more. Riva didn't speak, but she stepped closer. I trust you, Mason. Opened a back panel in the wall, revealing an escape tunnel. He handed her a flashlight. We go underground. Follow the old water lines as they moved into the tunnel. The base shook. The soldiers had arrived, but they were already gone, down in the darkness. Mason and Riva walked side by side. He held his weapon. She held the crystal. He protected her body. She protected his heart. In a world torn by war, something new was growing. Not a weapon, not a machine, but a bond. A human heart and an alien soul. The tunnel was dark and cold. Riva held the small flashlight, watching shadows dance on the walls. Mason walked beside her, his weapon ready, eyes sharp, above them. Human soldiers searched the bunker they had left behind, but down here, only silence moved. How long is this tunnel? Riva asked. A few miles, Mason replied. It leads to an old water station. Nobody uses it anymore. They kept walking, the sound of their footsteps echoing through the stone, every now and then. Riva would glance at Mason's face. He looked, but his hands were tight on his weapon. She knew he was worried. Do you think they'll follow us? She asked. They might try. Mason said, but I know these paths better than anyone. Riva held the glowing crystal close. It gave her warmth and something more, a feeling of hope. Ever since they found the secret message in the cave, she had a feeling they were part of something bigger. But someone didn't want that message to be heard. Someone wanted her gone. They reached the end of the tunnel and climbed out into the night. The stars above were quiet, but the wind carried danger. Mason scanned the sky. Let's keep moving, he said. We're not safe yet. They walked through broken buildings and burned fields. The world around them was full of scars, pieces of war, forgotten and left behind. In the distance, a small fire burned. Smoke curled into the air like a warning. Riva pointed. Someone's there. Mason raised his weapon and moved ahead slowly. Riva followed, her crystal glowing softly in her hand. They reached a group of survivors, a woman, 2 children, and an injured man. Their clothes were torn, their eyes tired. Mason lowered his weapon. We're not here to hurt you, he said. The woman nodded. We've been hiding for weeks, she said. Soldiers, bounty hunters, machines, no one cares about us. Riva stepped forward. You're not alone anymore. One of the children stared at her. Are you a robot? He asked. Riva smiled. No, I'm just different. The woman offered them food and a place by the fire. For a moment, there was peace. Mason helped the injured man, cleaned his wounds. Riva sat with the children and shared stories. They laughed for the first time in days. But peace never lasted long in a world like this. As the night grew deeper, a sound filled the air. A low hum, sharp, cold, and full of danger. Mason's head shot up. Get down, he whispered. Bounty hunters. A ship flew over them, silent. And fast red lights scanned the ground, searching, hunting. They were being tracked. The woman pulled her children close. Riva looked at Mason. They're after me, aren't they? Yes, he said. And they won't stop. The ship landed nearby, dust flying everywhere. Armored figures stepped out, tall, armed, and merciless. One of them shouted, "Hand over the alien child, and no one else will be harmed." Mason stood up. Slowly, his weapon in hand. You'll have to go through me, he said. The bounty hunter laughed. We know who you are. Mason, ex-commander, deserter, traitor. You can't protect her forever. I don't need forever, Mason said. Just long enough. Blasters fired. The ground shook. Mason moved fast, shooting with perfect aim. He took down 2 hunters before diving behind cover. Run, Riva, he shouted. Take the others and run, Riva. grabbed the children and led them through the ruins. Her crystal pulsed faster, glowing bright as they ran. One of the hunters followed. He aimed at Riva, ready to fire. But the crystal flashed. A shield of light appeared around her. The blast hit the shield and bounced away. The hunter was thrown back. Riva stared at her hands. "I didn't know I could do that," she whispered. Mason joined them, breathing hard. "You're full of surprises," he said. They helped the others get to safety, hiding deep inside an old factory. That night, no one slept. They sat together in silence, listening. For danger, Mason cleaned his weapon. Riva stared at her crystal. "I think this is more than just a gift," she said. "It reacts to danger, to fear, maybe even to love." Mason looked at her. "Whatever it is, we need to protect it, and you. But why me?" she asked. "Why do they want me so badly?" "Because you're hope," Mason said. "And in times like these, hope is dangerous." Outside, the wind howled. More ships flew across the sky. The hunt was far from over. But Riva was no longer just a lost child. She was becoming something more. A spark in the shadows. And Mason, he wasn't just a soldier. He was her shield, her guide, her human heart. Together, they would keep running. Keep fighting, because now, it wasn't just about survival. It was about what they were becoming. The morning came without sunlight. Gray clouds hung low. And the air smelled like metal and dust. Inside the old factory, everything was quiet. Mason stood near the broken windows, watching the sky. Riva sat on the floor, holding her crystal. Her small fingers tracing its glowing edges. The others. The woman, the injured man, and the two children were sleeping nearby. They had made it through the night, but it wasn't over. Not even close. "You didn't sleep," Riva said softly. Mason didn't turn around. "I never do when I'm being hunted. You're always protecting others," she said. Mason gave a small smile. "That's what humans do. Or at least the good ones." She stood and walked over to him. "Is that why your daughter drew me?" "Because she believed humans and aliens could be family." "Yeah," Mason said, his voice softer now. "She believed we could all live together, not just fight." Riva held out the crystal. "It reacted again last night. It protected me. Can you control it?" Mason asked. "I don't know yet," she said, "but I think it listens to feelings." They didn't have much time to think. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from the sky. A ship landed in the field nearby, larger, heavier, and marked with red symbols, bounty hunters again. Riva asked. Mason shook his head. "No, this one's different," from the ship. A tall alien stepped out, not like the others. His skin was silver, eyes glowing green. He wore armor with old markings, symbols that Riva recognized. "That's from my people," she whispered, "but older. From the old war." The alien raised his hands. "I come in peace," he said. "I am Kale, and I've been searching for the one who carries the Heartstone." "The Heartstone?" Mason asked. Kale nodded. "The crystal she carries. It's ancient, older than both our worlds. It chooses only one in 1,000 years. Someone who can change everything." Riva stepped forward. "Why me?" she asked. "You are the daughter of two bloodlines," Kale said. "One of peace, one of strength. That makes you rare." Mason narrowed his eyes. "What do you want from her?" "To protect her," Kale said, "to help her awaken the power she carries." Before others take it, Mason didn't move. He didn't trust easily. But Riva touched his hand. "I feel he's telling the truth," she said. They followed Kale into the forest. Nearby, hidden beneath the trees, was an old outpost, a forgotten temple made of stone and steel. Inside were carvings, glowing walls, and a large circle in the floor. "Place the Heartstone here," Kale said. Riva placed her crystal in the circle. The walls lit up with images, battles, stars, and a flame rising from the ashes. Mason watched closely. It was history, but also a warning. The war is not just about land or power, Kale explained. It's about fear. Fear of what we could become together. Mason stepped forward, so someone is trying to stop peace before it begins. Exactly, Kale replied, and they know she is the key. Suddenly, the ground shook. Explosions outside, Kale turned. They've found us. Mason grabbed Riva. Back to the trees, he ordered. Kale stayed behind to slow them down. Go, he shouted. I'll hold them. They ran into the forest, blasters firing behind them. Mason pushed through the trees, carrying Riva when she stumbled. She clutched the crystal. Now glowing like fire, they reached a cliff below was a river, fast and wild, no other way. Mason said, hold on to me. He jumped. They hit the water hard, the cold cutting like knives. But they survived. They came out miles downstream, wet and tired. Riva looked up. Why do you never let go of me? Because I believe in you, Mason said, and because I lost one daughter already. Riva placed her head on his shoulder. You didn't find me by accident, she said. I think you were meant to. Mason nodded. Maybe I needed saving too, as night came again. They hid in a cave by the river. Riva stared at the stars. I want to change this world, she said. I want peace, like my mother wanted. Like your daughter dreamed, Mason looked at her. Then we'll do it together. Their bond had become something more. Not just protector and survivor, but family built not by blood, but by trust. And far away, someone watched them, a shadow in the stars. Their names were spreading. Across the galaxy, the girl with the crystal and the human with the broken heart. Together, they were dangerous. Together, they were hope. Asterisk, the stars were no longer quiet. They blinked like warning lights across the dark sky. Ships moved in the distance, not for travel, not for peace. They came for war. Mason and Riva stood on a hill above the ruined valley. Smoke floated through the air like slow-moving ghosts. Below them, machines were waking up. Troops were setting up bases, digging into the earth. Like insects, how many ships do you count? Riva asked. Mason used his scanner, more than 20 heavy-class destroyers. At least one command cruiser. He lowered the scanner, eyes cold and steady. They're not here to scare us. They're here to take over. Riva held the Heartstone. Close. It pulsed harder now, faster with every step the army took. Why are they coming so strong? She asked. Because they're afraid. Mason said, they know you're alive. And they know you carry something they can't control. Riva looked up at the sky. She didn't feel small anymore. She felt like a storm ready to rise, but storms needed guidance, and she had Mason. They returned to an old watchtower deep in the mountains. It still had power, still had a radio. Mason called for help. He sent messages to Earth's command, 2 hidden rebel networks, to anyone who would listen. This is Mason, ex-commander. Unit 417. He spoke into the mic. The girl is real. The crystal is active. And they're coming. He paused. You can run, or you can stand. But the future is knocking on our door. Riva listened quietly. Do you think anyone will come? Some will, Mason said. Because deep down, people want to fight for something true. That night, the stars above were full of motion. Flashes of ships blinking in and out of orbit. The war was coming to Earth, and the world had no idea. Inside the tower, Riva found a mirror. She looked at her face, tired, dirty, but strong. Not the same child who cried in a cave. Not the same girl who ran through ruins. She was something else now. The Heartstone glowed brighter in her hands. Why? Me? She asked the reflection. Why this power? Why this fight? And deep inside, she heard something. A whisper. Soft but clear. Because peace must have a voice. Mason walked in, holding a small metal badge. He placed it in her hand. It was my daughter's. He said, she wore it every day. said it made her brave. Riva looked at the badge, a sun. Half covered by shadow. I'll carry it now, she said. For her, for everyone, suddenly. The radio buzzed. A voice crackled through the static. This is Captain Lin of Earth Fleet Omega. Receiving your signal, we're coming, Mason replied. You better come fast, we're out of time. The ground shook, the enemy was landing. Giant ships breaking through the clouds, fire trailing behind them. Machines unfolded from their sides like claws. Mason looked at Riva. Are you ready? No, she said, but I will be. He handed her a small earpiece. Stay close. Listen for my voice, no matter what happens. Outside, soldiers formed lines. Rebels arrived in trucks and bikes. They weren't many, but they had fire in their eyes. People from different places, human and alien, all standing together. Mason climbed up to the tower's top. He raised the old Earth flag and a white banner beside it. Riva walked out to the front of the line, crystal glowing in her chest. The enemy commander sent a message through the sky. You are protecting a weapon. Give her to us and we will spare your lives. Mason pressed the radio. She's not a weapon, he said. She's the future. And we're not giving her up. The first shots were fired. Blasters lit up the night. Explosions cracked the ground. The war had begun right at their doorstep. Riva stood tall in the middle of the storm, her eyes closed, her heart open. The Heartstone responded. Rising from her chest, spinning in the air, a wave of energy blasted out. Not to destroy, but to protect. A shield formed over their side, holding back the enemy's fire. Everyone watched, stunned. Even the enemy paused. Mason ran to her side. How did you do that? I didn't, Riva said. We did. Their bond had grown into something greater than blood. Something even war couldn't break. Trust, belief, love above them. Earth fleet arrived, ships cutting through the sky like arrows of light. The final battle was beginning. But now, the world was watching. Now, they had a chance. And at the center of it all was a human and a child. Two souls who refused to give up. Two hearts that refused to break. Asterisk, the sky was on fire. Ships danced through the clouds, light flashing from their weapons. The ground shook with every blast. Mason stood with his team behind cover. Dust on his face, sweat in his eyes. But his focus was only on one thing. Riva. She stood in the center of the battlefield, the Heartstone floating above her hands. The light from it was no longer soft. It was strong, bright, and alive. Enemies surrounded her, weapons ready, but they did not move. They watched her with fear. Because something had changed, she wasn't just a child anymore. She was something more. Mason yelled through the radio. Fall back to the core line. Protect the civilians. The rebels moved fast, pulling back, taking the injured with them. But Riva stayed. Mason, I can feel them. She whispered into the calm. I can feel their hate, but also their fear. You don't have to do this alone, Mason replied. I'm with you, always. She smiled. I know, but this part. It's mine. The Heartstone pulsed with her breath. Then it exploded with light, not to destroy, but to reveal. A wave of golden energy spread across the battlefield. Weapons powered down. Soldiers froze. Even machines paused, as if confused. And then it happened. Memories poured from the light. Not just Riva's, but all those touched by the war. People saw their lost homes, their families, their hopes. Even the enemy saw. One alien soldier dropped his weapon, then another. One by one, across the battlefield, the war paused. Mason ran to Riva's side. He placed a hand on her shoulder. You did it? I didn't end the war. She said, I just reminded them why it needs to end. Suddenly, a scream tore through the air. A dark ship fell from the clouds. The enemy commander, he was not ready to surrender. He saw peace as weakness. You think one light can erase the shadows? He shouted. He raised his weapon, fired. Mason saw it before Riva did. He moved fast, too fast to think. He pushed her out of the way and took the blast himself. Riva screamed. The Heartstone turned blood red. A wave of power exploded from her body. The enemy commander was thrown back like a leaf in a storm. Mason lay still on the ground, smoke rising from his chest armor. Riva dropped beside him. Mason. No, please. He opened one eye slowly, still. Here, he said with a weak smile. But that really hurt. She cried and laughed at the same time. You shouldn't have done that. I told you, he said. Your family, above them. The Earth. Fleet arrived in full force. The enemy ships turned, ran, disappeared into the black sky. The battle was over. Not with more fire, but with light, with truth, later. When the field was quiet and the fires were out, people began to gather. They didn't cheer. They didn't shout. They just looked at Riva with quiet respect. A general from Earth stepped forward. You saved us all, he said, and reminded us what it means to be human. But I'm not human, Riva replied. The general smiled. You're more human than most of us. Riva turned to Mason. Will I still stay with you? He stood slowly, wincing from the wound. You're not staying, he said. You're living with me, in our home. She smiled. My forever home. Days later, the sky cleared. The stars were quiet again, and on a small hill near the edge of the old battlefield, Riva planted a flag, not of war, but of peace. The Heartstone no longer glowed in fear or anger. It glowed with calm. It had chosen her not to destroy, but to heal, to guide, and beside her stood Mason. No longer a soldier. No longer just a man with a broken past, but a father again. They built a home at the edge of the valley. Nothing big, nothing loud, just a place with light. With warmth, with hope. Sometimes the children of the new world would come to visit. They would ask Riva to tell her story. She would laugh and say, "It's not my story, it's ours." And when they asked about the man beside her, she would say, "That's Mason, the human who let me stay." And Mason would add, "She didn't just stay, she saved us all."